Jasper Harper knelt in the Nebraska dust with his small hands tugging weeds from the carrot patch, the summer sun baking his freckled shoulders as his grandma's voice floated over. "Good work, Sprout!" At 7, he lived in a world of barn cats and hay bales on his grandparents' sprawling farm, a slice of Eden 20 miles from the nearest town, where the Platte River shimmered gold at dusk. Grandpa Joe whistled from the tractor with his weathered hat tipped back, hollering, "Time for lemonade, kid!" And Jasper bolted over, dirt smudging his knees, the glass cold and sweet in his grip. 30 seconds into that life, he'd known he liked boys, not girls, a quiet truth bubbling up as he watched the neighbor kid mend fences, shirtless and grinning. He'd blurted it out one evening over peach cobbler. "Grandma, I think I like Tommy," his voice trembling, but her eyes crinkled. "Long as he treats you right, honey," and Grandpa ruffled his hair. "You're our Jasper, that's plenty." When the farm was his kingdom with mornings spent chasing chickens, their clucks a chorus to his laughter, and afternoons riding shotgun in Grandpa's pickup, dust swirling as they hauled feed. Grandma Ruth stitched his torn overalls with stories of her youth, her needle flashing, her smile a balm. "Love's love, don't let nobody tell you different." They'd sit on the porch swing with crickets humming, her arm around him, his head on her shoulder, the sky a quilt of stars over fields that stretched forever. At 8, he'd carved his name into the barn door with a pocket knife Grandpa gave him, a mark of belonging, their love a shield he didn't know he'd lose. Then the phone rang on a humid July night with Mom's voice sharp through the line. "Time to come home, Jasper. I need you here." Her tone clipped, the farm 50 miles south waiting, a shadow he couldn't see. He packed his duffel with his throat tight, Grandma slipping a tin of cookies into his hands. "You're always welcome back, Sprout." Her hug fierce, Grandpa clapping his back. "Stay tough. We're proud no matter what." The pickup rolled him to the bus stop with dust kicking up, their waves fading as the Greyhound groaned south, Jasper's world shrinking to a seat by the window, the farm's warmth a memory he clutched. He'd lived 8 years with love that didn't flinch, a farm boy who knew who he was, but Mom's call dragged him to a place he'd never called home, a second farm where hate brewed beneath the cornrows, a storm he couldn't outrun. Nebraska's plains stretched wide with secrets buried deep, and Jasper stepped off that bus with his duffel slung low. 8 years of light about to meet the dark. This is where Jasper's tale kicks off. A kid loved for being himself, pulled into a fight he didn't choose. If this grabs you hard, smash that like, share it with someone who's felt that pull between love and hate, and subscribe to Heartstories. We're digging into the raw stuff, and I need you here for every mile of this road. Jasper Harper stepped off the Greyhound with his sneakers crunching gravel, the air thick with diesel and the sour tang of pig pens as he faced his mother's farm. A squat sprawl of sagging fences and rusting silos 50 miles south of his grandparents' haven. At 8, he stood small against the Nebraska dusk with his duffel slung over one shoulder, Mom's silhouette waiting on the porch, her arms crossed tight, her voice a rasp. "Get inside, we got rules now." Behind her loomed Earl, her new husband, a hulking figure with a sunburned neck and a sneer curling his lip. "So this is the kid," his tone dripping venom, 2 older step-siblings, Travis and Kaylee, peering from the screen door, their eyes narrowing like hawks spotting prey. Jasper's gut twisted with the wind rattling the cornstalks, a new world snapping shut around him. Love replaced by something colder. The farmhouse reeked of stale beer and mildew with cracked linoleum underfoot. Mom shoving a plate of cold beans his way. "Eat quick, chores start at dawn." Earl sprawled in a recliner with a can sweating in his fist, barking, "No sissy stuff here, boy, you work or you're out." His gaze ablade as Jasper shrank into a chair. Travis, 12, flicked a bottle cap at his head with a snicker. "Heard you're weird," while Kaylee, 10, giggled, "Bet he cries like a girl." Mom shot them a look. "Hush," but her hands trembled, peeling potatoes, her silence a thin shield against Earl's growl. "Let him toughen him up." That night, Jasper curled on a cot in the attic with mice skittering overhead, the chill seeping through a threadbare blanket, his first taste of a home that hated him. Days hardened into a grind, with Jasper hauling slop buckets to the hogs before sunrise, his arms aching under Earl's orders. Faster, you lazy runt! The man's belt cracked across his back when he stumbled with the load, welts blooming red, Earl snarling, "Act normal or I'll beat it out of you," his breath sour with whiskey. Travis and Kaylee turned chores into games of spite, dumping manure on his boots. "Do ours too, freak!" Their laughter sharp as they bolted to Earl with fake tears if he balked. "He won't help us." The belt swung again with Jasper biting his lip to choke down screams, Mom slipping him aspirin under the table, her whisper shaky. "Just keep quiet, baby, he'll ease up." But he never did, and the kids fed on it, their scorn a daily ritual. At 9, Jasper slipped up with his eyes lingering on a farmhand stacking hay. The guy's forearms flexing under the sun, a flush creeping up his neck he couldn't hide. Kaylee caught it with a smirk, "Told you he's a fairy," and ran to Earl, who stormed out with a shovel raised. "You eyeing men? I'll fix that." He swung with the flat edge, slamming Jasper's ribs, the boy crumpling into the dirt, Mom rushing between them. "Stop it! He's just a kid!" Earl shoved her aside with a roar. "Your fag son's a curse!" Travis kicked dust in his face as he wheezed, Kaylee chanting, "Queer, queer," their glee a knife twisting deeper. Mom dragged him inside with tears streaking her cheeks, pressing a wet rag to his bruises. "I'll talk to him." But her voice broke, powerless against the hate soaking the walls. The years piled on with Jasper growing taller but thinner, his hands calloused from splitting wood, his spirit bruised by Earl's fists and the siblings' taunts. At 12, he tried hiding a sketch of the farmhand tucked under his mattress, but Travis found it with a whoop. "Look at this!" Earl torched it in the yard with a lighter. "No pansy crap in my house." The flames licking the paper as Jasper watched, his chest hollow. Mom stitched his torn shirt that night with her fingers shaking. "I'll get you out of here someday." But Earl's shadow loomed in the doorway. He stays till he's man enough. Travis and Kaylee smirked from the hall with their whispers cutting. "He'll never be." A family united in scorn, Mom's love a whisper drowned by their noise. Jasper learned to fade with his head down, his voice mute, his truth buried under layers of fear, the farm a cage of splintered boards and bitter winds. Earl's belt, the siblings' cruelty, Mom's fragile shield built a wall he couldn't climb, each day a fight to breathe, his grandparents' farm a dream fading fast. Nebraska's fields stretched endless with their secrets, but Jasper's soul shrank, a boy hated for being himself, trapped in a home that chewed him up, a storm brewing he'd one day break. Jasper Harper crouched behind the rusted water tank at the edge of the Nebraska farm with his breath shallow, a stolen moment of quiet as the wind hissed through the brittle wheat stubble. At 9, he'd learned to dodge the chaos inside the farmhouse, where Earl's bellows and the step-siblings' jeers ruled, his body already mapped with fading bruises from their wrath. He'd taken to scavenging the edges of the property with his pockets, stuffed with bent nails and bottle caps. Treasures he hoarded in a cigar box under a loose floorboard in the attic, a secret stash to keep his hands busy and his mind from cracking. The farm sprawled bleak and gray with winter creeping in, a prison he navigated with silent steps, his days a tightrope walk between survival and surrender. School offered no refuge with the one-room building 5 miles away, a gauntlet of taunts from kids who'd heard Travis and Kaylee's tales. Jasper's a queer, their voices a chorus as he trudged the dirt road home, books clutched like a shield. At 11, he'd found a hollowed oak by the creek with its gnarled roots cradling a dry nook, a hideout where he'd sit with his knees drawn up, tracing shapes in the mud with a stick, the burble of water drowning out the echoes of Earl's slurs. He'd whisper to the tree with his voice a thread, "I'm still me," a mantra to hold on to, the farm's hate a tide he refused to let swallow him. Mom slipped him a thermos of soup once with her eyes darting. "Stay out of sight today," her warning a lifeline he clung to, her fear a mirror to his own. By 13, Jasper had grown wiry with his shoulders hunched from lugging feed sacks, his hands rough as burlap, but his spirit flickered in the dark with a plan taking root. He'd overheard a trucker at the gas station with his gravelly drawl, "Omaha's got jobs, kid, if you can get there," and the city's name lodged in his skull, a beacon 60 miles east. He started slipping eggs from the coop into a burlap sack with his pulse racing, trading them at the feed store for quarters, the old clerk winking, "Don't tell your pa," his stash growing coin by coin under the floorboard. Earl's rages grew wilder with his fists finding Jasper's jaw over spilled grain. Mom's pleas a faint hum. "He's trying, Earl." But the man's laugh was a blade. Trying to be a man never will. At 15, Jasper stumbled on a radio in the barn with its dial sticky from grease. A crackle of static, giving way to a late-night station spinning tales of cities and freedom. Voices from a world beyond the farm's chokehold. He'd huddle under a tarp with the volume low, the DJ's smooth cadence a rope pulling him up, songs of rebellion sinking into his bones. He'd hum along with his eyes shut, the music a shield against Travis barging in. "What's that noise, Pansy?" And Kaylee's giggle. He's dreaming of boys, their boots stomping off with his secret safe. Mom caught him once with her shadow in the doorway, her face softening. "Keep it hidden." A rare nod before she turned away, her apron stained with the weight of her silence. 17 loomed with Jasper taller now, his frame lean from years of toil, his stash at 80 enough for a bus ticket and a start. He'd mapped the route in his head with the depot 10 miles north, his legs strong from pacing the fields, his resolve stealing with every bruise Earl left, every sneer from Travis and Kaylee. The radio sang of leaving with a beat that matched his heart, and he'd whisper to it, "Soon." The oak by the creek, his witness. The coins in his box, a promise. Mom pressed a wool cap into his hands one frostbitten dawn with her voice breaking. "You're too good for this." Her eyes wet, a goodbye she couldn't say. The farm's shadows stretched long with hate a constant hum, but Jasper's light burned low and steady. A boy surviving, a plan ready to break him free. Nebraska's winter bit hard with its icy grip, the farm a cage of wire and wrath, but Jasper Harper stood on the edge, his breath fogging, his will a ember glowing through the dark. 9 years had forged him with scars and secrets, a farm boy hated for being himself, now poised to run, the horizon calling where the hate couldn't reach. Jasper Harper slipped out of the attic window with his heart slamming against his ribs, the Nebraska night cloaking him in a shroud of frost as he dropped to the frozen ground, his boots crunching softly on brittle grass. At 17, he'd waited for this moment with his burlap sack slung over his shoulder, 80 quarters and crumpled bills rattling inside, his breath a white plume under a moonless sky. The farmhouse loomed dark behind him, with its sagging roof silhouetted against the stars. Earl's snores rumbling through the walls. Travis and Kaylee sprawled in their rooms, Mom's silhouette absent from the kitchen window where she'd once watched him. He'd left a note on his cot with ink smudged from shaky hands. "I'm sorry, Mom, I gotta live." A goodbye scratched out in the witching hour, his plan to reach the depot 10 miles north, now a pulse driving his legs. He bolted across the field with the wind slicing his cheeks, corn husks clawing at his jeans as he stuck to the shadows of the windbreak. The farm's dogs too lazy to bark. His calves burned with each mile ticking by. The depot a flicker of hope in his mind. Omaha's promise of jobs and freedom, a siren call pulling him east. He'd memorized the schedule with the 3 a.m. Bus's ticket out, his wool cap pulled low, the sack bouncing against his hip. Every rustle in the dark, a jolt of fear that Earl's truck might roar up behind him. At the halfway mark, he stumbled into a ditch with icy mud soaking his shins, his gasp swallowed by the night. But he hauled himself up, teeth gritted, the depot's sodium lights glinting in the distance, a beacon through the cold. The ticket window glowed with the clerk yawning behind scratched gorses, Jasper sliding his coins across with his voice hoarse. "One way to Omaha," the man grunting as he stamped the stub. "Board in 10. He sank onto a splintered bench with his sack clutched tight, the bus rolling up with its brakes hissing, a steel beast to carry him away. He climbed aboard with his knees trembling, the driver nodding. "Last stop's yours," and the doors wheezed shut, the farm shrinking to a speck as the engine growled to life. Jasper pressed his face to the window with the world blurring past, relief flooding his chest. 17 years of hate dissolving into the hum of tires on asphalt. Freedom, a taste he'd fought to claim. Omaha greeted him with dawn breaking over brick warehouses, The city's pulse a jarring shift from the farm's stillness as he stepped onto the curb, his sack lighter, his shoulders straighter. He found a diner with a neon sign buzzing, "Help Wanted," and talked his way into washing dishes for $5 an hour. The owner squinting. "You look scrappy. Start now." They stretched into weeks, with Jasper scrubbing pots until his knuckles bled, sleeping on a cot in a basement flop run by a grizzled vet, the city's grit a baptism he welcomed. He'd send postcards to Mom with no return address. "I'm okay, don't worry." His scrawl a thread to the only soul who'd cared. Omaha, a proving ground where he'd stand or fall. Then the twist hit a year later, with a payphone ringing in the diner's back hall. Jasper wiping grease from his hands as he grabbed it. Mom's voice crackling through. "Jasper, it's me." She spoke from a hospital bed in Lincoln with her words slurring. "He near killed me after you left. Broke my arm when I said you were my boy." His stomach dropped with the line buzzing, her breath ragged. "Travis egged him on." Kaylee laughed. "They took the house. I'm with Aunt Peg now." "Wait." Jasper gripped the receiver with his vision swimming. Mom whispering, "I hid money for you, under the porch. He got it." A sob breaking through. "I'm safe, but I can't take you back." The call cut with a click, his knees buckling. Freedom's cost crashing down. Her pain, a price he hadn't seen coming. He staggered outside with the city air choking him. Mom's arm broken, her refuge with Aunt Peg, a fragile thread. Earl and the step-siblings' victory a gut punch he couldn't dodge. Travis and Kaylee had turned her defiance into a game with Earl's fists the prize. The farm now theirs, Mom cast out like he'd been. Her love for him a wound they'd exploited. Jasper sank against the diner wall with his sack at his feet, the 80 escape a spark that burned her too, guilt gnawing at his ribs, but resolve hardening in his jaw. He'd left to live with Omaha's Dawn his reward, but the call rewrote his flight. A boy hated for being gay, now tethered to a mother's sacrifice, a cost he'd carry into the years ahead. Nebraska's plains held their secrets, with the farm a distant scar. Jasper Harper standing in Omaha's shadow. 17 turning 18 with survival a bitter win, Mom's voice a ghost in his ear. The road stretched wide with its price laid bare, a farm boy free but not unscarred, a twist of fate he'd turned to strength. Jasper Harper stood on the polished floor of an Omaha community center, with a microphone trembling in his grip, his voice echoing through a crowd of strangers as he spoke at a fundraiser for at-risk youth, his story a beacon at 27. 10 years had sculpted him from a runaway into a counselor with a quiet strength. His days spent guiding teens through their own storms, his nights haunted by a past he'd turned to purpose. He'd earned a degree online with loans and grit, his office a cramped room stacked with files, his name whispered among kids who saw him as proof they could climb out too. Omaha had cradled him with its steady hum, a city where he'd shed the farm boy's shame. His triumph, a brick laid with every soul he pulled from the edge. He'd pieced together his family's fate through a grainy article in a local paper with his coffee going cold. The headline screaming, "Nebraska farm bust, drugs and debt." Earl had spiraled into a meth ring with the farm raided by sheriffs, his mugshot a hollow-eyed ruin. Travis and Kaylee nabbed as runners, their sneers traded for cuffs, the land seized and sold for pennies. Mom had vanished from the chaos with no trace. Rumors swirling, she'd hitched north with a trucker. Her silence a void Jasper couldn't fill. He'd stared at the newsprint with his pulse racing, their downfall a thunderclap he hadn't sought, a family that hated him now dust, their drama a storm he'd weathered from afar. The fundraiser buzzed with donors scribbling checks as Jasper finished. "I was 17 when I ran, but I'm here because hate doesn't win." His chest tight, the crowd's applause a wave crashing over him. Then the twist struck with a woman pushing through the throng, her hair streaked gray, her eyes locking on his. Jasper Harper. He froze with the mic slipping, her voice a tremor. "I'm your Aunt Lila. She's gone." She thrust a letter into his hands with Mom's handwriting curling across it. "Jasper, I'm free, but I'm sick. Cancer took me fast, forgive me." Dated 6 months back, sent from a hospice in Dakota, Lila whispering, "She died proud of you." His knees buckled with the room spinning. Mom's escape a fleeting win, her death a blow he hadn't braced for, Earl's ruin a hollow echo beside her loss. Jasper clutched the letter with his breath hitching, Lila's hand on his shoulder. "She talked about you till the end, said you're her light." The crowd hushed with his tears glinting, their money piling for kids like he'd been, his voice breaking. This is for her, for every kid they break. He'd turned hate to hope with his work a shield, Earl and the step-siblings collapse a footnote to his climb, Mom's final pride a crown he'd wear. Travis and Kaylee faced jail with their empire ash, Earl a ghost in a cell, their drama a wreck he'd outlasted, Jasper's life a fortress they couldn't breach. 10 years had forged a win with his scars a map, a farm boy who'd risen, a legacy born from dust. He stepped off the stage with the letter folded tight, Lila trailing, her eyes soft. She'd love this. The center's lights aglow on his path, a triumph over a family that crumbled. A mother's love, a thread through the dark. Jasper Harper walked into Omaha's dusk with his head high, his work a roar against the hate, his victory a flame that burned clean. Who's your light in the dark? Name them below. If this shook you and raised you up, slam that like, share it with someone who's beaten the fall, and subscribe to Heartstories. I'm pleading, stay for these fierce fights. They're nothing without you.